Welcome to Hedge Her Tech Stories. Today we're talking about engagement, trust, and leadership at a time when AI is accelerating everything, transformations, certainties, and concerns. When processes are no longer enough to provide reassurance, leadership becomes the only compass capable of maintaining engagement and guiding teams through this technological transition. To discuss this, I'm joined by Benoit Morancet, CEO of Callintra. Hello, Benoit.
Good morning.
So before we begin, tell me a little bit about what Callintra is.
So it's a Swiss company that's very active internationally. We have two jobs, measuring engagement with very advanced methodologies. And then there's Feedback 360 with a platform that is also advanced, methodologies and coaches. This means that we actually have two areas that are converging today.
And where does Callintra come from? Quality is inside.
The quality of people, humans, it's inside organizations. So now that we're moving towards AI, it will be very important to maintain quality, human quality then. Quality is inside.
But is it a company you created?
Yes, absolutely. 25 years ago, quite a while now.
And back then, why did you create this company?
Because I was coming out of an American company, a very big one, I won't name it. And I was one of those people who had a certain potential, but no one listened to me, no one listened to us. And so after a while, together with 4 or 5 other hypos, as we were called, we decided to leave because we had no career prospects there, because we hadn't been listened to. I told myself, well, one day, when I leave there, when I get the chance, I'll create a company that listens to people. That's where Callintra comes from.
Great. So to start, you say that trust is the foundation of engagement. Among the 7 engagement factors you measure, why is that? Are the first 3 all related to trust in management and strategy?
So in fact, in large engagement surveys, we measure 70 factors. We conducted a very, very thorough study using AI and machine learning to determine which were the 7 main factors. And among these 7 main factors, the first 3 are directly linked to trust. The first one, I trust top management to lead us toward a calm and secure future. Since today we are in complete uncertainty, it's a very personal thing to be able to trust people who will continue to employ us, develop our employability, and ensure that we can live normally and not be too affected by changes. So this trust is fundamental. We work a lot with executive committees. And in executive committees, we always tell them 30% of engagement comes from you. It's essential. The second element, the second factor is strategy, alignment with the strategy. It's very personal because it's tied to values, of course. I don't want to work for a company whose strategy goes against my values, especially for Generation Z. And then the alphas who are coming, this will be predominant. And secondly, because the strategy is good, because I understand it, I can envision myself in the future. And since the future is becoming increasingly difficult anyway, having alignment with the strategy boosts engagement. It's the second most important factor. The third, which I really like, is the pride we have in the products and services we deliver. We're not afraid to show our business card. We're proud of what we do. And because we're proud of what we do, we know we'll be successful. We know we'll have a job. We know we won't be replaced. We know we'll be able to improve our quality of life, our standard of living in the long run, because we're in a successful company. These 3 elements are fundamental. We're heading towards AI. Some people say it's moving very fast. Others maybe a bit more slowly. There are lots of articles about it right now. But truly, building trust during transformations is the key to performance. Human performance, economic performance. If we don't have that trust, we'll end up with archipelagos, really, people who will stay for a while, who will become freelancers, and who, when they have less trust, less salary, less management, things get a bit tougher and they'll leave.
You mentioned the different generations. Well, personally, I think all this generational talk in HR is mostly marketing, in my opinion. That's
true.
That you gave me the example in terms of values. We know very well that a company creates values for an overall framework, but actually not much by generation segment.
Yes.
How do you see that?
Well, we'll have to adapt because the employment conditions for the coming generations are different and will be very, very different from my generation. For example, we had technological obsolescence. It used to be 10 years, 15 years. Today it's 2 years, 3 years. So we're going to have to pay attention to these generations and offer them platforms to develop their engagement that will be different from others because their needs are different. Otherwise, how are we going to attract young talent? Will young talents want to work for a company that, by default, has a strategy that moves forward without caring about what's left behind? I don't think so. I think the employer brand will suffer a lot. So I also think it's the new tools that are coming which will allow for segmentation, which will make it possible to offer training, coaching, or opportunities to people in different ways, and not have the American-style one-size-fits-all approach, which, as we know very well, doesn't work. In any case, it doesn't work at all in Europe.
So isn't one of the strategies for companies in today's world, something we've been talking about since this morning in other episodes, to immediately equip themselves with the best technologies, in the sense that younger generations want to work with current technologies? That's a lever for attracting talent, isn't it?
It's a lever for attracting talent, but it has a double effect. First, indeed, it shows that we're modern and that we're going to provide tools to increase their productivity. But secondly, by doing this, if we're not careful, we're actually reducing their employability ourselves. So once again, the truth is always in the middle, not at the extremes. So yes, we can attract these new generations with this, but will we be able to keep them with that? Well, no, I think that to retain them, we'll need something else. Trust in management, a strategy that is completely aligned with my values. And then there's that pride in saying, look at what we're doing here, it's amazing. And when you have that, you have the three main factors of motivation and engagement.
According to you, AI creates a new zone of uncertainty within organizations. Why does leadership then become the number one compass?
Because it wasn't until now, not always. And the companies that are really successful, we do 10,000 to 15,360 per year. So we're able to conduct meta-studies, and then we cross-reference them with engagement. And what do we see? The companies that perform well are those with the best leaders, those with leadership that is inspiring, that speaks up, that tells the truth, even when the truth is hard. It's going to be tough. The truth that will be spoken in the coming years won't be easy at all. So having inspiring leadership that listens and is able to accept feedback, even if it's negative, allows people to say to themselves, hey, they're not different from us. And that sense of closeness makes us a company with a shared destiny, a common purpose. And when we manage to achieve that one, we have a lot of engagement surveys that start with one followed by the company name. When we manage to achieve that one, then we know that leadership is doing the job it needs to do, inspired, committed, even in difficult times.
So what do you think would happen if management started introducing AI carelessly, hastily, and without any educational effort?
So what did we do with it? 1,300, 1,400 engagement surveys. We see with recurring clients that engagement improves slowly, and it can deteriorate in just 1 year, and it takes years to recover. So if we're not careful, if we bring in AI with purely economic concerns, and it's normal to have those, but if that's all we focus on, then the best among them will leave. Because the reason that brought them to this company, the thing that made their eyes light up, is gone.
Yes, and then we have a very striking example, I won't name the brand, of a company in the United States with over 100% turnover, which has widely introduced AI into its processes. That's it.
And how do you manage to maintain longevity when you have such high turnover? Great. We're going to see fantastic improvements in terms of process optimization, significantly better collaboration. A lot of things are going to get better. But at the end of the day, will we really be more efficient when we've lost the people who help us understand the world that's coming? AI won't help us understand that world. They will explain the past and present world to us. And if we no longer have those people, then longevity might be a bit shortened.
So from a manager's perspective, it's interesting because we talk about leadership, but there's also the leadership of the leader or CEO. But after that, it's the managers who keep the company and the teams running. You've analyzed tens of thousands of feedbacks, 360. In these benchmarks that you were able to produce, what do they show about managers' ability to handle these rapid changes?
Well, it's weak for many of them. 75% of managers who are evaluated, here we're taking the evaluation from the direct supervisor on whether Benoit is able to handle rapid changes. We don't ask the question exactly like that, but that's the theme. 75% of managers today, especially mid-level managers and frontline managers, don't know how to do it. That doesn't mean they won't be able to do it, but today they don't know how to do it. And we're going to introduce a major acceleration for them, a complete overhaul of organizations, because that's what's coming. For most of them, 2/3, 3/4, they're not ready for that.
Are they just as overwhelmed as their team members?
Completely. They're overwhelmed and their level of engagement is already dropping. Now we can see it because they're right at the center of organizational dysfunctions, dealing with paradoxical directives from upper management that's too far removed, and with team members they have to look after. Not necessarily in terms of soft skills, that would be the second point. Today, only 30% of managers have the necessary soft skills to manage hybrid teams. Hybridization isn't just about remote work versus office work. It's about teams made up of both AI and humans. And that will require new skills for some people, though not necessarily for others. But we already need to start anticipating this now because progress is happening quickly. Right now, we're in the first phase of AI. We have generative intelligence chatbots, which allow us to do all sorts of things, but that's just the starting point. Level 2 is coming, and that's agents. So assistant AI, which will actually be able to do the work of employees, or at least a good part of their work. And as computing power increases, it won't just be a good part, it might eventually be all of the work. So frontline managers will be faced on the one hand with upholding ethics and certain rules, and on the other with teams that will gradually, unfortunately, and probably for some, lose their sense of purpose. When a large part of the work is automated and only a portion remains, that remaining part needs to be interesting, but above all, we have to be capable of doing it. Not everyone is. We're not all innovators after all. We're not all people who can inspire others. We're not all like that.
There will be managers who have trouble working with AI and who prefer to work with humans.
There
will be the opposite as well.
So you'll have managers who are 100% AI, who will do a good job of educating their teams. And then on the other hand, there will be rejection. We'll have detractors. If we do an INPS on the introduction of AI today, the NPS is very favorable because people don't really know what's happening, what's coming. But in 2 years, in 3 years, when we have the first AI agents, then we'll have managers who will say, no, I don't want that. And questions will arise at the executive level about what we're doing.
It's funny because if you look back a bit at the evolution of management, in some companies, to become a manager, you first had to be an expert. And it was the experts who became managers. Those profiles will actually find themselves in this situation.
Of course.
Because in fact, they're going to bring in AI agents and take on a role that is preferable for them.
Understood. Zooming out.
Taking a step back.
No contact, no feedback. We'll just let the teams manage on their own. Absolutely. And then there's still the revolution. I feel like we don't talk about it enough. For the first time in human history, knowledge is free. Where it used to take years, even decades, today it's free. So we're going to have to invent something new. We're going to have to engage and motivate employees with other factors. And so training, everything we're going to do to develop, to upskill, as they say, employees, we need to do it now because once we're in it, there will be a gap. There will be very significant differences. It has to be done today.
How do you develop this leadership, so to speak, on a large scale, including with your frontline managers?
In my field, you'll need 360-degree feedback. You need to be aware of your impact.
That's easy, that part.
You already need to be aware of your impact. And when you're in a changing environment, the impact you can have, or at least the impact you perceive of yourself, will also be changing. So you have to do that. That's the first thing. Second, it's absolutely necessary to restore learning and development budgets that have recently been cut, because that's what will ensure that hybridization will work. And if hybridization doesn't work, how do we attract talent? Are there really talents who want to burn themselves out in organizations that no longer function? The fifth factor of engagement is the organization's effectiveness. I work in a company, I'm engaged because we manage to function well. From the moment there is an imbalance in how things work, whether due to AI, for example, or a lack of collaboration among employees, it could be one or the other, then we will have problems. So we need to anticipate. But how can we ask companies today to anticipate this when they're not necessarily behind, but in any case, they're not ahead either? Or
even they haven't started at all.
Or haven't started. And then you have studies showing that most AI projects are failures. So that doesn't encourage allocating budgets. The budget heroics are a bit weak, to be honest.
All right, let's take a break. We're going to move on to the quiz section. Very simple. 8 quick questions. Don't elaborate. Just answer yes or no. And then we'll have 3 questions where you can elaborate. Do HR professionals really trust the data they produce and use on a daily basis?
No.
Is HR data too fragmented across tools to be used effectively?
Yes.
Do you think AI represents a threat to certain professions? HR, especially those very focused on administrative tasks like payroll, admin, instructional design, training, or sourcing. Candidate?
Twice, yes.
Do you think employees feel confident when they learn that an AI can analyze their data?
No.
In a highly competitive HRS market with a multitude of solutions, do you think HR professionals are really able to find their way and choose the right solutions for the company? In your opinion, do HR teams today have the time and the necessary skills to carry out projects, end-to-end HRS?
Neither.
Do you think HR professionals are still somewhat in the dark when it comes to defining their AI needs for the function, HR?
Yes.
Lastly, knowing that the ShareTech market will double by 2032, going from 40 to 81 billion, while many HR teams are still investing little or very late in their HRIS, do you think there is a risk of falling behind compared to competitors in terms of data quality or even in meeting employee expectations?
Very clear.
Open question. A sociologist has warned that excessive use of ChatGPT could lead to a loss of skills and even a decline in cognitive abilities. What do you think about that?
Well, I've experienced it on a daily basis. I had a consultant who did analyses without sharing any confidential data using ChatGPT. It was very, very well written. And I told him that if he kept doing that for a few more months, we wouldn't need him anymore because he wouldn't be developing his mental flexibility. We need people who are able to decode new situations, to advise clients, to have the necessary empathy to do so, to say things that might sometimes be a bit difficult. We don't need people who are just going to delegate tasks. This work of analysis, not just analysis, but also writing all the time. If they do it 50% of the time, that's fine, but for the rest, it needs to stay within them.
A study revealed that nearly 78% of candidates prefer to have an interview with an AI, rather than with a human recruiter. In your opinion, why is that?
Why? Because it's easier. And because there's less scrutiny, there's not that energy exchange you get with a recruiter. It's a machine. The machine isn't going to have emotions. The machine is reassuring in that way, on that side of things. And in any case, it's going to have a bias anyway, a comfort bias like many AIs. They're really very biased nowadays. A recruiter sees the traps. They see the body language, they see everything. That's why there's an appetite for this. It's like AI coaching, which might be interesting for certain fields, but for truly key areas. How do I manage a team under difficult conditions? Is AI really going to help us?
Last question. In your opinion, how will we integrate juniors into HR teams when so many entry-level jobs, payroll, admin, sourcing, training, are likely to disappear or be automated in the coming years?
So we have to be willing to invest, not at a loss, but to invest for the next 5 years so that we have people who think differently, who are present, who have built up experience with us. And that means going back to the first question, if they're not engaged, how do you keep them? We won't be able to keep them. I have an anecdote related to the previous question. I was being interviewed by some financiers, and this charming lady kept saying, AI, AI. In fact, there was AI everywhere. I was like an AI echo chamber. Then I said to her, and Deborah, the day you do your final checkout or check-in, depending on whether you have religious beliefs or not, but whatever, your final checkout, do you really want it to be an AI that says to you, bye-bye, thanks for this life, ciao, even though it hasn't experienced anything? Nothing at all. It has no memory, no sensory experience, and that's not what you go through. It's not the void that comes, it's just nothing. Or do you want a human being who will look you in the eyes, who doesn't know where you're going, but knows they'll go there one day too, and who understands you? I think that's what it's all about. So use AI as much as possible because we're going to see productivity gains that will change the world. But be careful not to go down the path of singularity and lose our soul. In an overdose situation to say,
yeah, so to continue, or rather, consider AI as a technology and not as something else.
No, that's not it.
Okay, you explained that organizations today have a plethora of tools, but that's not enough. Why is that? The real issue isn't the technology, but the ability to give meaning to what we measure.
So in our professions, everything is a matter of context. If we don't understand the context, we can have all the data in the world, but it won't explain anything to us. and a plethora of tools. There are tons of them, lots and lots of platforms, etc. So there was a hype during the years 2016, 2017, and so on. A huge hype around these platforms, but after a while it dies down because in fact they redo surveys or they redo 360 feedbacks or performance evaluations, basically whatever you want, and actually they realize that something is missing. What's often missing is the courage and the ability for HR to go and present the results and actually do something with them. Because it's a big deal. They're going to see an executive committee or a management board and saying things that are a bit uncomfortable. They can't be too much. It's the HR people who end up exposing themselves to that. Then secondly, we have the tool itself, which is going to evolve a lot. We're going to have agent-based technologies in our professions that will change a great many things. But it's always about the context. Do I know what I'm measuring? Am I able to deliver the message? That's the first thing. But secondly, what is the context? So AIs will be able to have more and more context, but today we have data that's scattered everywhere, as you mentioned. And maybe we could have a slightly more predictive approach than what we have today. It's difficult to achieve that. So on our end, we try to have it, but having a more predictive approach to confidentially identify if people are struggling. If for certain age groups, typically Gen Z who have just arrived, we train them on some things and not on others, or adapt schedules because we have weak signals. I think that once we have that kind of intelligence, supported by AI, then yes, we'll have the ability to use tools that really help us. Right now, all of this is a bit scattered.
What kind of company contacts you when they feel there's a loss of engagement or meaning within their organization?
Large corporations. They have automated a lot of things. They have engagement teams that do a great job, but something is still missing. And now, a lot of mid-sized companies are also turning to these technologies, even though they weren't necessarily, they have the same problems as large corporations, the same issues is the same problem. The same problem when it comes to attracting people and keeping them. They have the same problems. They might have slightly fewer resources. And they're asking themselves the question, how can we be as efficient as possible? Because the effectiveness of these tools has an even faster business impact for mid-sized companies than for large corporations. In a group, there are buffers. For mid-sized companies, there are no buffers. It's direct. That's why we're working with more and more mid-sized companies.
All right, we've talked about leadership and engagement. We clearly understand that they're inseparable. It's an inseparable pair. When you meet with a general management team, what do you actually advise them to strengthen this pair? I imagine you're not going to suggest they overload their processes with too many tools.
No.
So what exactly is the approach?
To listen proactively with complete trust. To do it with the right tools, but also not to make false promises about what's coming next. And so really to establish a feedback process that isn't continuous, because that wears everyone out. I was at a client's recently, just before an LBO, they had an engagement rate that was just unacceptable. 6 years later, they've broken our record. They're in the top 10 for engagement levels. They took the survey and the 360 feedback as well, by the way, as a predictive management tool for future performance. They did it beautifully. It's a large group. So from the moment we manage to make these projects important. At the beginning of the Trente colony, we never got to present to the executive committee. They didn't want to see us. Today, we spend a lot of time with the executive committee because it's become central. You can't have real long-term economic performance. Short-term, yes. Long-term, no. If you don't have human performance. And engagement, giving your time, giving your energy to a project that helps you grow, that's engagement. And having managers who understand us, who support us in developing our employability and our careers, who will help us integrate new technologies, who will tell us the truth. That's the last question you're going to ask me. What advice should be given to a management team that wants to develop AI? That's the conclusion.
That's the conclusion.
It's very simple. Tell them exactly what you want to do. Be completely transparent. Create a sense of urgency. No panic. A sense of urgency, and equip these people with upskilling so they won't be caught off guard. And neither will you. Because the growth curve looks like this. We're just here. We still have a little time. Shall we meet again in 3 years? I'm not sure. Actually, it's now.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.